All right, so this is our podcast. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about colorism. And you ready for us? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm ready. My name is Firas in Hindi. You know.
Yeah, one of my friends, longtime friend, decided to bring him on and talk about, colorism from his perspective in the Arab community. He's, Afghan, right?
I'm Palestinian.
Oh, Palestinian. So let's get right into it. You introduced yourself. Where are you from? Palestine?
Yeah, Palestine, but my family lives in Jordan.
Really?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Like we said, we're going to be talking about colorism. Do you know what that is, colorism? Have you ever heard of it?
Colorism.
Okay.
You know, when people try to associate darker...
What's up, dude? What's up, dude? What's up, man?
Frost's brother just came in late. He's here.
Yo, what's up, fam? You know what I'm saying? I'm the big brother.
Just leave it in. I'm just leaving it.
Y'all have fun. Y'all have fun. But like, hey, stay in school, kids. College is good. God is good.
Okay.
God is good all the time. All the time. God is good. Is this live?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, my bad. Good thing I didn't say nothing stupid.
Second about what on.
You can thank Will Smith for that. I'm not the first Prince.
It's gonna be in it.
Yeah, I'll just leave it in. They'll probably be in here to talk about the subject too.
Hey, I could be like a guest.
You can talk about it with us. I swear.
What are y'all talking about?
We're talking about colorism. It's kind of a
Colorism?
serious thing, but you can...
Wait, so who's tuning in?
His whole class.
So,
Yeah, his professor and the whole class.
alright, everybody give him an A. Colorism? Like, what do you mean by colorism?
Do you know? So come here, come.
Alright.
So the first thing I was asking Frost is like, do you know what colorism is, or do you know what colorism is? Have you ever heard of it? What do you think it is? Have you ever heard of it? No?
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it?
Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
Listen.
It's okay. Just say yes or no question.
I'm not educated on it.
You're not educated on it. Frost, do you know what? I've already talked to you about it a little bit, right?
When people tend to associate darker skins with something negative, like even in our own communities.
So stereotype-based perspectives on color.
Yeah, but so basically, what Frost said is pretty right, but it's not necessarily just that. It's more about like within your own communities. So like, you know how with black people there's this whole thing about like light skin versus dark skinned people and stuff like that. So like, they're all black, but why are you separating yourselves even further by saying there's light skinned ones or dark skinned ones? So we were just gonna talk about like from our different communities how that, if it even exists in. I know it exists, but I want to see if y'all ever heard of it or anything.
We have.
Or seen it or...
Oh, we have, but like in the Arab community, it exists more in terms of nationality, like where you come from.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah, it can be like that too, but...
But in terms of colorism, we do have it because we do have black Arabs.
Yeah.
And they're not looked at, unfortunately, as the true Arabs.
Yeah.
And that's also a form of racism.
Mm-hmm.
But we have that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's from racism. It's connected to it, but I wrote in my presentation that I think it's more like it has to do with like it's more like a subconscious thing than like a outright racism. You know what I'm saying? Like you might not like obviously you're not gonna be like I'm racist towards Arabs because you're Arab too, but you do have like some like stereotypes or whatever about Arabs in your head or whatever, and the same for
and
like,
sometimes it just depends on the culture.
Yeah.
So
the culture.
So like marriage and
that's
stuff
a big
like
one
that.
actually. To be honest.
And I don't think that's necessarily racism.
Yeah, that's not racism and stuff like that.
I think that it's just if there's a difference because if you were like saying I don't wanna marry a black person, that's different from saying I wanna marry a Jordanian or a Palestinian.
Yeah, because that's the thing too. It's not racism because it's not like you're not saying it is racism, but it's not colorism in the sense because it's not Like you're not saying I don't want to marry black people, and like maybe if there's a black, if it's genuinely because like of culture or whatever, then you'd be okay with a black Palestinian or something like that. But have you ever heard about it, and where did you hear it from? Like,
I mean,
did you hear about it before me talking to you about it or no?
I have, but it wasn't direct. You know what I mean? Like it was.
Like you didn't hear it called
Like
colorism.
we didn't hear it say exactly.
So you've seen it and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and talk about.
We've seen it in like.
We'll talk about it. Don't say that yet. We'll talk about that. Laith, have you heard about it before now or?
Colorism?
Yeah.
I have, but I haven't like had a discussion about it before. But I've heard the topic come up.
Yeah, when I first heard about it, it wasn't really that long ago, but I didn't really know anything about it until I did like my own research about it. Even before this, like I just looked into it myself. And when I learned a little bit about it, I tried to like see how it was in my communities and stuff like that. And actually, I could tell that it was very like widespread in both my communities, like from the Mexican side and from the black people side. But yeah, what do you so how do you think about colorism? Like, is it something that you think is like how do you think about it? Is it just like wrong like all the way, or is it like, do you have any justification for it or anything, or what do you think about colorism?
I mean, I do think it's wrong, but then you have to look deeper because of what I said earlier. Like, that sometimes it's not based on. Sometimes it is colorism, but it's not necessarily based on race. It's hard to find. For example, like there are black Palestinians, but when you think of Palestinians, you don't think of black people like automatically.
Because the majority
aren't black.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go into like marriage and stuff like that, it's not direct colorism because we're not intending. And I'm not saying we. I'm just saying people when they say I want to marry into my own culture, they
assume that person has a different culture just because they're black. Hey. You can go talk with us too if you want to. We're recording a podcast.
We culture.
There's another brother.
We're recording a podcast.
So I think, my opinion is.
Yeah. So what do you think about it?
What's this podcast for?
It's about colorism. Do you know what colorism is?
Yeah.
Then tell us what colorism. Come
here.
Is it for school?
Yeah, it's live. It's live.
Yo. It's live?
Yes,
yeah.
yo.
Now this is Haytham Al Hindi. M3 at UAMS.
It's another brother. It's another brother. He just gave his whole government name and everything.
Have fun.
He told us to have fun. Alright.
تحتبهدل انت من هيثم.
Everybody's listening to you. They're gonna find out what that means.
But what I think colorism is, although it can induce stereotypes and be bad, there's a sort of culture, like it becomes part of like that light skin versus dark skin, like, oh, he's light skin, like I think it becomes like some people outside of it, they have no say in it, but like when it comes to like the within your own community, I feel like it becomes after a point like it becomes part of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if like that's negative or positive. Like, yeah, if it causes division, but at the same time, it's like it just becomes adopted as a part of a cultural aspect.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's even in like popular culture, like in TV shows, like that stereotype. Like example, I was watching, for example, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I've been watching that recently a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And like they use that aspect, and they use topics similar to that as part of like humor,
mm-hmm.
or as part of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what actually close to what I was gonna say. Like, I don't think it's like I said earlier, it's not like outright racism. Like, you're not purposely. Yeah. A lot of times it's not like you're just purposely trying to be racist or something. It's because a lot of people like, we don't know a lot about what it is and stuff. So like a lot of people, they're not thinking about, oh, why am I calling him a dark skin or why am I calling him a light skin? You know, it's just something that you grew up with, and that it's just subconscious, just there.
And it's part of your identity.
Yeah.
Like if you yourself are light skin, like that's not you. When someone says, "Oh, he's light skin," I don't think they take that as an insult.
Yeah.
That's part of your identity. That becomes part of who you are,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And the same thing with like someone who's a black Palestinian. Yes, I'm a black Palestinian. That makes me proud. Or yes, I'm like it's like I think if you're looking at something outside of the community, like if I'm looking upon into
You're
the
not
black
gonna
community,
understand it.
I'm not gonna understand it. I think within your own community, only that individual can understand
Yeah.
where they fit in that discussion. You know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna be harder for like say a white person to look into this conversation and say, "Oh, I haven't thought about it like that," or
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like on a surface level, it's not bad. It's just whenever you start to look into really why it's happening and why people do it, then
It's unintentional.
yeah, it's unintentional. Like from the outside surface level, it's not bad. You just something that you do or say or something like that. Like even like other cultures and stuff. Like I didn't put this in my stuff, but like in like Africa and Asia, mostly the whole idea of like whitening your skin and stuff. For them, it's not. They don't think about it as, oh, I want to look white. It's just it became part of their culture. You know what I'm saying? Like lighter skin is better.
It's about attractiveness. What they think is attractive.
Yes,
And
but when you start to look at why they think that's more attractive, then that's when you start looking at the darker side of things. Like, how did they get to that point? How did that become a part of their culture? Because before it was everybody looked the same. There was no trying to lighten your skin because that's what people just looked like when they were introduced to different, mainly Western culture and stuff like that. Then that's when it started to change. Yeah, so that leads to the next point. Like, where do you think it comes from? Like, I already have, I'm pretty sure, and from what I've researched, I'm pretty sure I know where it came from. But where do you think it comes from? Like, the whole deal.
So colorism, I would say that it comes from. We talked about this earlier. Something about pop culture. So when you look at movies and when you look at TV shows, and maybe this isn't, the most historical way developed, but I'm talking about like in modern times, when you look at shows and movies, oftentimes the black person in the show is depicted as maybe bad, or like they're too goofy, or they're doing bad stuff in the movie, versus someone who's lighter, has a lighter skin tone, and then people automatically assume. They generalize it. They stereotype it. All black people are goofy like that. All black people are bad. All black people do drugs. For example, if there was a show about drugs and the black person is a dealer, well, what are these kids gonna see that being black is being bad?
Do you have any examples of that, like within your own community? Like, I know I do for even like how you just said right there. And this isn't really talking about like where it came from, but this is more like showing how it's reinforced like today and stuff. Like this, we're not really talking about where it came from yet, but like this shows like how it's reinforced today and stuff. Like how it keeps it relevant in our minds and stuff. But like I know for a fact actually even in black people movies like in like telenovelas and stuff like that, whenever you watch like usually the bad guy is a Afro Latino guy who he's the drug dealer and stuff like that. He's speaking Spanish, so he's obviously a part of that culture and he's from that culture, but he's still made to seem like he's the bad guy, or he's put to act he's made to act that part. And like when you look at commercials and stuff like that, or even the people that are relevant in pop culture and stuff, and Latino pop culture and stuff like that, they're usually from a lighter complexion and stuff like that. In the black community, the same thing is true for like, I know recently there's been a lot of like new like black movies and stuff like that, with a lot of black actors and stuff like that. But even when you look at it, like, I just think just until recently it's been like where the lighter person is the attractive one. They have straightened hair and they're the one that everybody wants to go for or whatever, or they have even just slightly more curly hair than what I'm saying.
I did a.
So like, have you seen that in like Arabic TV or like, for example, or something like that? Like, are there any like?
Well, the thing is, that's a problem. Most of the Arab movies or Arab shows don't even have A lot of the times they don't even have black people. They don't have black representation, and I think that's part of the problem too. That in these movies and shows there aren't even black representation, and then the things that I guess people in my community take stuff from other communities, and then you know they can leave.
Yeah, I'll be back though.
Okay. Well, they take those notions from other communities and they take it as their own. Like,
So they don't have anything to prove otherwise.
yeah,
basically.
and then they try to take maybe like, oh, they see a statistic that says black people commit this much more crimes than any other race, and then they're like, oh, maybe we don't want to be around people that are black, or maybe we don't want to associate ourselves with people that are black, and then that's why I think at the end of the day there's less representation of black people in the Arab community.
So that makes sense then. So like you said, like they're already separated. Like whenever you see a black person, you're not gonna think like if you see a black person in Palestine or Jordan or whatever.
We would not think that he's Arab.
You're not gonna think he's from there. You're probably gonna assume he's from somewhere else. So the fact that you've already like separated him from your culture and stuff like that, it's easy for you to then like say, you know, to assume other things about him. Like if you can assume that, then you can assume other things about him too. Like maybe he's somebody that, you know, does crazy stuff or something like that. Have you ever experienced or seen like even firsthand or like from someone, like seen anybody else like we were talking about the light skin versus dark skin thing. I know you've seen that in like TikTok and stuff like that probably, right? Have you seen any other examples like that?
Actually, I have. So when we go to Jordan, we have a black neighbor, and we know that he's from Sudan. You know what I mean? But he is Jordanian. Like he's Jordanian, and he's obviously darker than the rest of us in Jordan, and some people call him names like dark chocolate or like in Arabic yeah in Arabic it's called halib chocolata, like milk chocolate, like that's what they call him. Like they call him halib chocolata, or they say like chocolata ta'al, like come here chocolata, like that's what they call him chocolate and stuff like that. And the thing is, what I was surprised about is he doesn't get mad. He doesn't. In fact, he's not even pressed about. Like he's not pressed about it at all.
That's like how he said though. It's because it's not seen as like, because it's become so like natural now that it's not like something that you think, oh, where did this come from? Why are they calling me that? Why is it even?
Yeah, he doesn't see it as a slur.
Yeah.
He doesn't see it as a slur.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is. Obviously, it is. So if I called you hey darky, that's something that's bad. You know, and if you saw a video of a girl calling a white girl calling a black guy, hey, come here darky, I mean, what are you gonna think about the girl? She's racist. Yeah. But if you see that in Jordan or like hey chocolata, like I mean, it's bad, and it is bad.
Yeah, but sometimes like in Asian culture and stuff like that, they use stuff like that as a term of endearment. Like, they say stuff like that. Like, I watched a documentary about, like, in Asian culture, like, when they see somebody of a darker complexion, they'll call them, like, brother or sister. And, like, and they say that because, you know, they assume, like, or a big brother or a big sister, because they assume that black people are, like usually stronger and bigger, and, you know what I'm saying? But they think of it as, like, they're praising them or something, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, like, if you think about why, like, if you really look into it, it comes from, it's not coming, like, when they're saying it's not coming from a bad place, but what it's actually from, like, it comes from, you know, stereotypes and stuff like that. So it's because they're assuming something. So they might not have that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
stereotypes, as surprising as it may seem, can be a good thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of that? Like,
there are positive stereotypes
are
and
good
stuff like
things.
that. Yeah.
Well, they aren't good things, but they
Some
can
are.
be. They can be like, if someone says, "Oh, usually black people are really good at basketball." I mean,
That's a compliment.
That's a compliment. That's what I'm saying.
But at the same time, it's what it does is when you generalize people like that,
people who can't play basketball.
Yeah, then you
are
start
feel,
to
you
start to hold people to a standard that, you know,
they can't meet.
Yeah. So like with me, I've definitely experienced it more so from the Well, actually, yeah, more so from the Mexican side, to be honest. On the black side, like I've heard about like light skin and dark skin and stuff like that. Even with my cousins and stuff, like my cousins are really, like we call them like yellow and stuff like that. We call them like yellow bone or something like that. Um, one thing I put in my presentation is like the thing about, you know, we like black people in America a lot of times try to separate themselves from Africans. You know what I'm saying? Even though culturally we are different, but like we come from like we are Africans just here. The only thing that separates us really, besides the culture, is our skin tone. We're a little bit lighter than because we've been here mixing with people and stuff like that, Native American, white people, stuff like that. So that's another thing. Like if we see an African or something, we're automatically gonna separate ourselves from there. But I feel like that might be more on the racism side of things, even though it's not. Even though we're the same race, it's more outright and blatant than colorism is. On the Mexican side, I feel like colorism is a huge problem and racism, but colorism I feel like is more widespread than racism is, even though there are a lot of Mexicans and stuff that are racist towards people darker than them or just other people in general. But like one thing that I've experienced with Mexicans is like even my cousins, them calling me like Moreno and stuff like that. That comes from, I don't take it as anything bad. Like I sometimes like I use that, like I call myself that sometimes when I'm just like doing stuff. Or even you didn't even notice this, but when we were in the car with Carla, she called me that. She called me Moreno. Yeah, and like my girlfriend, she's Mexican and half white.
Wait, so what does Moreno translate to?
It just means brown, like brown guy. Really, that's what it means. So it's not like a bad thing, but when I tell you what it comes from, then you're gonna know why it really shouldn't be used like that and stuff like that. But even like Chino, like whenever so my girlfriend, she's half Mexican and half white. Her grandma she says that I have pelo chino, which means like curly hair. But the word chino, it comes from what I'm going to talk about later. The word cholo, cholo, like a Mexican American, that comes from another like derogatory. That was actually a really derogatory term back in the days that I'm going to talk about, and like güero, güera, and stuff like that. Like there's certain and in the Mexican community they'll separate themselves like that. Like if you go to Mexico and you go to like the bigger towns and stuff like that, you'll see that the white people will separate themselves and the darker people will separate themselves. And a lot of times even people darker than me will say, oh, I have no connection to African, I have no African, like they don't want to claim that stuff. Why? You know what I'm saying? Or why do you not want to be associated with darker skin tones and stuff like that? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's something that's really widespread, like the fact that we use it in everyday language, like Moreno and stuff like that. Negro, like I have a cousin, he's a little bit darker than me and they call him negro, which means black. So like it's not always like, it's not like they're not like making fun of him or anything. And the same thing with me. Like whenever she says I fellow Chino or whatever, she's not making fun of me or trying to say something bad. It's just become part of everyday life and of the culture and stuff. But it does come from bad things.
Well, do you think there's a difference between saying like, so in Arabic, when we say like this black person, or if we had to say like this black person, we would say had al aswad, or like black people, we call them sud, which aswad means black in Arabic. It's the color black. Mm-hmm. So, and I know the Spanish word for black is what they call your cousin.
Yeah.
So, I mean, does that have? Because I know on our part, it's not racism because that's just what it is. You know what I mean? It's there isn't. We don't say like we can't say African American. Mm-hmm. We just say black in Arabic. It's aswad. So how is that different from Mexico?
So that's the whole thing. Like that's why it's hard to differentiate between colorism and racism, because like I said, it's not necessarily them being racist. Like it's not them being racist. It's just the fact. Like it's just why. Like why are you separating? You know what I'm saying?
Like what else would you say? You know what I mean? What else would you say?
But I'm saying, like, why does his name need to be negative? Like, why does that need to be the one thing that you know what I'm saying?
I know, yeah. I
like so to call, yeah,
like to call him
like, and even like it's not like he's so black that you can't tell he's Mexican. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he has Latino features and stuff. He speaks Spanish fluently. So when you're going and you talk to him or something, you don't need to say, "Oh, my black friend," or "Oh, blackie," you know? You don't need to say that because he's Mexican. Like that shouldn't even be part of the conversation, you know what I'm saying? He's one of the guys, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why is that even included or why is it like why do you need to differentiate between a güero or a negro? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you're all Mexican, so what difference does it make? And this is what I was going to talk about, like that stuff comes from, and even in black culture and stuff, it all comes from, you know, our involvement with like Western, like being Westernized and stuff like that. Whenever for Latinos, it was kind of, or Hispanic people, it was kind of different because the Westerners came there, whereas for black people, they were taken from where they were and put here. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But like for like those words I just used and stuff, like cholo and stuff like that, all those words come from the casta system. You know what that is? Casta system. Like when people used to put people into a hierarchy based on their skin color and skin tone and stuff like that. So like those words like that, they come from a very dark place, but they've been like normalized, and as they've been normalized, colorism has been normalized in the culture too. You know what I'm saying? It's okay now to separate somebody based on their skin tone and stuff like that. It's okay to say somebody's better at one thing than another based on their skin tone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In black culture, it's the same thing. Living here and stuff, like back in the days, you know, people used to, you know, the whole thing about like, I think it's called the one what's it called? The one drip, what's it called? One drop rule or something?
What are you talking about?
Like if you have one drop of black in you, then that means you're black or something like that.
Oh, like the percentages and stuff
yeah,
like that?
That was something that was in America a lot. Like they would say, if you have one drop of black in you, then you're black, and that separates you from everybody else. They also had different it wasn't as enforced as it was in like early Mexico and stuff like that, where it's like they have names for each person and stuff like that. Because in Mexico, it was precise. Like if you're mixed with this, then cholo means dog. So that was whenever a Spanish person and a Native American person mixed, like they were called dogs, which is something that's really bad, but it's something that we use today as like something to be proud of. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like stuff like that, you can tell like when you look at where it came from, then it makes you rethink colorism and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like when you really think about it.
Yeah.
What like we've already done this a little bit, but how is it in like would you say it's as widespread in Arabic culture as it is in black culture, like black and Mexican culture? Like because for us, it's like Mexicans especially, it's very normal. Like it's every day you'll hear something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For black people, it's not every day, but every time there's a get together or something like that, or you know there will be a mention of light skin, dark skin, stuff like that, and that stuff even comes from like being, you know, the house slave versus field slave type stuff. You know what I'm saying? The lighter skin ones would go inside and stuff like that. But like, is it as widespread, you think, in Arabic culture and stuff like that, or not? Like, and be honest, it might not be, but
it definitely is widespread.
Do they have? I never really thought about this, but do they have like? I know in Asia I've seen even stuff from like Afghani people and stuff like that, or like Persians and stuff. They try to whiten their skin and stuff like that. Is that something that happens in Arabic? I've never heard about it or anything. But do people try to whiten their skin over there for real?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
do they have like creams and stuff?
They do have creams, and I know that like they do, and it's like I know some family that like they're so proud that they're whiter than the rest of us. Like my uncle, when he was telling us like, okay, let's line up, let's see, and he was the whitest one of us all, and then he was like, I look the best, I'm the whitest, but I think it is widespread in the Arab community, maybe not as much.
So you think it's more like it's there, but it's not as normalized, you think?
It's not as normalized.
Like it's there, but they don't even know.
There are a lot of Arabs that know that it's wrong. Like the difference between maybe, because you were explaining how it's like very normalized in like on the Mexico black side, but Arabs, there's a lot of Arabs that know that this is wrong. Like there's a term called abid, and that translates to slave in Arabic. And a lot of Arabs, they use that term even though they don't mean it as intentionally racist. But it is racist, and a lot of people know that it is racist.
That actually is a good example.
Yeah, like they call him like abid, which means slave, but they think that, and maybe they're not being racist about it. Some people are, some people aren't. And but
some people it's just trickled down and it's in.
So yeah, some people are just they just think that
that's
abid
how
is
you,
normal.
Yeah, that's how you refer to a black person.
Like what Carla, when what she said to you, like she didn't think of it as anything like bad. But on our part, there's a lot of people that know that it is bad to call someone abid or abid, and they avoid that. But some people they don't, and it's just they need to know. They need to be more educated about that stuff where it comes from, because they might not know.
And that's what we're gonna talk about in a second. So yeah, like you just said, how can we stop it or make it better? You know, what are some practical solutions to do it? I think, like you just said, it just has to be education, because there's no and that's just because like it's such a like it's more like subconscious and stuff that I feel like you just have to let people know what it is and help them acknowledge it. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, you can't do this.
Sometimes that doesn't work.
How can you fix it?
Because if you tell someone don't use this term, they're gonna continue. A lot of people will continue.
Well, I wouldn't say like that. I'm saying like how we talked about like in like Asian cultures and stuff, like referring to people as like big brother and stuff. If you let them know like where it came from, maybe they'd be less. You know what I'm saying? It's not saying don't use it, but it's just saying this is where it comes from and this is why it might.
The
be
reason
bad.
why I
Same
don't
thing
think
with
that would be like the reason why I don't think that would be extremely like 100% effective is because a lot of people know where the N-word comes from and they still use it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of white people when they call black people the N-word, it's like they know that it came from the time that it came from, and they know that it's bad, and that's why they use it. Yeah. That goes with racism, obviously.
Yeah, but I feel like that's more because but I feel like that's like you can obviously tell that it's changed from like what I'm saying is like it's changed. Okay, I'm not saying that it's okay that it's like that now, but I'm saying like it used to be that the N-word was just how you referred to black people. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, maybe
you know what I'm saying.
Maybe
so when you
more,
that's what I'm saying. So it didn't become a part of like everyday language. It's not a part of everyday language anymore. Now it's something like when you say it, it's obvious what you're trying to do. You're trying to make that person mad. So the same thing could be true for like those other terms, like I said, Mexican culture or Asian culture or Arabic culture. Like once you educate people on what it means, it's not going to be a part of everyday culture, and you won't necessarily. It'll be a little bit harder for you to like. It'll make you double think whenever you like separate based on skin tone and stuff like that. It'll make you think about it more. If you do it and you know what it means now, then that's what you're doing. And you
just
know
racism.
Yeah, that's blatant racism now. Like you know what you're doing, and you're doing it to make that person mad. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Educating people, I feel like would be.
And I think something has to happen for. You know what I mean? Like for example, the Black Lives Matter movement. I think that had to happen for more people to understand in that case, what racism is, not necessarily what colorism. I think that sparked something that, especially this year. I mean, we've heard of Black Lives Matter in recent years, but something happened. The death of George Floyd. Something happened for people to be more awake about that kind of thing. Does something have to happen now for people? Because colorism isn't racism, and people think it's normal. So what has to happen for people to change?
And people seeing stuff like that, like it's not that all of a sudden these things started to happen. Like that's not the first. George Floyd isn't the first person for that to happen to. The only thing is people. When people saw it. And they had to acknowledge it, and when people, begin to educate themselves about it, then that's when change started to happen. So that's what I mean. It doesn't necessarily mean that if we can educate them before that something like that happens, then we're good. You know what I'm saying? Like we can let people know this is what it is, and this is what, And
it just needs to be a lot of people knowing. It can't just be the people within our communities that know this.
I was thinking even the fact that we didn't even really know what it was until we did our own research or until we figured it out by ourselves or until somebody else told us about it. It should have been taught to us in our school systems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like they should have put more emphasis on that because it is a widespread thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's not as I don't think it's as like life or death as racism is, but it could have at least been like a.
But you know, colorism leads to racism. So I think we learned about stereotypes. We learned about perceptions. We learned about racism. Like there's like prejudice. We learned about prejudice. That's what I meant, not perceptions.
Just knowing what the term is and what it means and stuff like that, I feel like would be beneficial for people to know and what it looks like. You know what I'm saying?
I think colorism should be in that category of words.
Yeah.
As racism, prejudice. I mean, it's not. It might not mean the same thing, but
it should be part of it.
You know, I think it can be not necessarily a synonym, but close to a synonym.
Yeah.
Colorism.
It could
and
be.
racism.
It could be. It needs to be included, like in education systems and stuff like that. They just need to talk about it a little bit more. It's because. Especially in Latino culture and stuff like that, because Mexico is just a part of Latin America and.
But do you think they'll do that? I mean, in America, maybe there's hope.
In America, really, but like.
But do you think that, like in Jordan, because I don't think
like
that would be that
no.
They would not put that in the education system. I don't know about that in Mexico.
No,
I mean
probably not. But it's, and that is another thing too. Is they're trying to. I feel like Arabic countries and Latin American countries are trying to sort of erase that part of their history and trying to just align with European culture and stuff like that. And
it's like what we see.
They're trying to ignore it. You know what I'm saying?
It's like what we see in our textbooks now.
Yeah.
Like in high school that made America seem like it was the country that was the best and it was not wrong at all for doing what they were doing. But there's a lot of times that America made mistakes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times that other countries made mistakes. But you can't be biased in these kinds of things. You just can't be biased.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so like I said, like educating people is the best thing to do, but if people aren't willing to accept it and then acknowledge it, then there's not really, like, you can't really do much else about it, you know what I'm saying? And that's what had to happen with racism. People, when they saw it happening all the time, and they had to accept it, that it was happening, then, changes started to happen, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But if we won't even acknowledge that it exists, you know what I'm saying, then there's no way that anything else can happen. You know what I'm saying? Well, yeah. That's all I can think of. You have anything else you want to add?
I don't have anything else I can add.
Yeah.
We try our most. We don't try. We just know that it's wrong.
Yeah. In
my family, and then I'm sure in a lot of other Arab families, and I'm sure a lot of other Mexican and Black families, we know. Some of us know what it is. Mm-hmm. Others don't. In fact, a lot of others don't. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's our job to do that.
Yep. Just to recap, talked about it. We put it out there.
Had a lot of interruptions.
Yeah, special appearance from two big brothers. And, it was a good podcast.
I think so.
Yeah.
FNJ podcast.
FNJ podcast, everybody.
Firas and I'm here.
All right, well, see you guys later.
Carlos?